Let's talk about 6 pieces of essential camera gear. Now, these are pieces that you are probably not going to get super excited and super thrilled to buy, but I promise you, they are pieces that if you don't have them in your bag or in your case, that it could really wreck a production for you. And you don't want that to happen. Trust me, you don't want anything to go wrong when you're actually out there on set, producing, filming, what have you. So let's jump into it. Let's talk about these 6 essential pieces of gear that I have in my bag and I keep around with me pretty much at all times. So up first, we have the multi-tool. This is the one from Small Rig, and there are a multitude of multi-tools that come in a various amount of price points. I like this one because it is minimal, but it has all the essentials that I need, like flathead, hex head, Phillips head. It has all the things that I might need when I'm out on production, tightening up pieces of gear. I don't know if you've been there, but I've been there where my softbox or a light mount or different pieces that I really need to work, but when I show up for whatever reason, it's loose. You know, we use these pieces of gear very frequently, so after several uses, things get loose. And if you're like me, you've probably busted out your keys and used that to tighten like a flathead. But if it's not a flathead, if it's a Phillips head or if it's like a hex head, you're kind of in a bad spot trying to only use your keys. So that's why I definitely like to have a Phillips head and then the hex heads. And so if you don't have this and you're just relying on your keys, it's not gonna cut it. So I would really recommend getting a multi-tool. It's gonna save you in a lot of scenarios. There are other multi-tools like this one here. This is a Leatherman. Obviously this is a knife. On the other end of it, we've got some scissors, we've got a Phillips head, we've got 2 versions of a flathead. And so this is another one that I often keep with me because having a knife is very, very handy to cut and slice, dice, do whatever you need to with that as well. So, but this one's gonna be a little bit more pricey, probably gonna come in above the $50 mark, but definitely worth it as well. All right, the second one is a magic arm. And having a magic arm is very useful for mounting various different things, being able to thread it in various places, and then having the super clamp on the other end. You could attach this to a desk or to a table. You could put a monitor on it. You could put a microphone or a boom mount onto it. And that is actually what we did last week. If I didn't have this in my case, we would have been in a bad spot because for whatever reason, I didn't get the screws with my C70 that mount the shotgun mount to the camera. So we were able to use this magic arm to screw it into the side of the C70 and then to put the boom mic within here. And that really saved us because we needed to have the nicer audio quality of that boom mic versus using just the internal mic or something else. And so again, you may not use a magic arm all the time. It may not be something that you need in every single instance, but having it around, keeping it in your case, which is what I do, is very useful for those scenarios where you didn't think you might need it, but then you end up needing it. All right, so third is gonna be cleaning. So having tools that you can clean your cameras with is obviously very essential. There was a time several years ago when I was filming and I started to notice like a little black dot on all of my footage in the same spot. So I quickly realized that it actually wasn't on the lens of the camera, but in fact, it was on the sensor. It was on the sensor of the camera. And you don't want to take your finger and try and wipe that sensor and clean it off. And you really don't want to use like a cloth like this to touch the sensor either. And that is where having one of these little air rockets is really useful because then all of a sudden you could take the air rocket to your sensor and blow off any dust. So it was a good thing in that instance. It was a good thing in that instance that I realized that that little black dot was showing up. I was able to take the lens off, clean it really quick, not touch the sensor, not mess up anything, put the lens back on and be able to reshoot that footage. Now, you may not even notice that depending on the shoot or depending on what's going on. And if you don't have something like this, you could be stuck in a situation where you can't effectively clean your sensor or you don't want to touch it. You don't want to mess it up even further. And so that's why having one of these, again, not super exciting to buy an air rocket or to buy a lens cleaning cloth, but having these can really eliminate all the smudges, the dust from your various pieces of gear. So I highly recommend getting some cleaning gear. Fourth, do not sleep on gaff tape. Now this is probably one of the smaller pieces of essential gear that I buy more frequently because I use it a lot, so I have to place a couple of orders every single year for this stuff. But this stuff is absolutely essential. When you are doing filmmaking and you're running various lights and you have power cords running different places, you want to make sure and use gaff tape to gaff all of that stuff down. The last thing you want is to be tripping over your own cords, or even worse, for somebody else to be tripping over your own cords, because that becomes a hazard for other people. And when that becomes a hazard for your business, because if somebody trips and falls and gets hurt, then you could be liable, and we don't want to go down that path, quite honestly. So gaff tape keeps everything secure, keeps everyone safe. It's versatile. You can use gaff tape to put negative fill over a window. You can use gaff tape to mount a multitude of things. It is probably maybe top of the line out of all of these items, one of my favorite and most essential pieces of gear. This is the 3-inch gaff tape, and I really like this to have enough width for power cords to tape those down. But for other various things, you may not need 3-inch, and that's when it's handy to get 2-inch and 1-inch gaff tape as well. But do not sleep on gaff tape. Keep a roll or multiple of these rolls in your case at all times. Fifth, this is something that I have neglected for quite a while. I will admit it. I will truthfully admit it. And that is step-up rings. So if you have an ND filter or some other kind of effect filter, so this is the Peter McKinnon variable ND filter. If you have this and it only fits to a particular size lens, like this one is an 82 millimeter, but then if you have something small like the Canon RF 35mm, and this is like a 52 millimeter, you cannot put that on there without a step-up ring. So you're gonna need one of these guys or a multitude of these guys to be able to do that. It's simply a ring that is going to fit onto your lens and then convert it to where you can put that filter on, and then you don't have to buy multiple filters, because we all know that these filters are really expensive. But now all of a sudden you can use that larger filter on a smaller lens. And I buy pretty much all of my filters at 82 millimeter because it goes with my 15 to 35 and then my 24 to 70, which are typically my most used lenses. But then for other lenses like this and my 50 mil, gotta have some step-up rings to be able to utilize these filters. And the reason why I hadn't bought them over the last year or so is, quite honestly, every time I would go to check out at B&H, I would forget that I needed them. And then shooting on the Canon C70, it has built-in ND. So when I'm just filming with that, I'm not worried about this. But when we do need to use the R5 as the B cam and we're shooting an interview and we need to have some ND because of, windows and lights and things like that, I've always forgotten it, and it sucks. It truthfully sucks when you forget to bring step-up rings. So get step-up rings. Don't make my mistake. Get step-up rings now and have them for the future. All right, and sixth, this is the piece of gear, like I said in the very beginning, that I didn't know that I needed, but recently added to my kit, and that is the Nanlite Pavobulb 10C. And I got this because pretty much when you walk into any room or any office, there's going to be various lamps. You're gonna have lamps that you have access to, but the light out of those bulbs is gonna be terrible. But to be able to have access to lamps and to be able to have a bulb like this means now we have control over the color temperature. We have control even over the RGB if we want to add maybe a little different flavor, a little bit of flare. We can put one of these into that Edison socket, and now all of a sudden we have another light that we can control. So this is super handy and super helpful. I'm actually using it right now to add a little bit of additional warm fill to this shot. And we used this just last week on a corporate shoot, and it came in super handy because it, again, added some additional fill where we needed it, and you are able to adjust the color of it so it really can add to the mood or add to the scene, especially when we were shooting some shots that needed to kind of look more tech-like or to look more computer, more analyst. And so we were able to change that to be a little bit more orange than just warm. And so it was extremely helpful and honestly made a lot of the shots a lot better by having one of these bulbs. And this one, I think right now on B&H comes in right at $50. So I picked up 3 of them, and I'm excited to keep them in my kit so that whenever we show up to various offices, various places, we could pop one of these into a lamp, and then we have control over the light that is coming out of that lamp, whether it's just practical or whether we need to use it as a fill. All right, so these are the 6 essentials that I take with me everywhere that have saved me in many different scenarios, and that I just really enjoy feeling. I feel more comfortable knowing that these are in my kit and that I can walk out the door having pieces that are going to serve me well. So I would recommend, if you don't have any of these, checking them out. I would encourage you to purchase some of them. It's going to make your life and your production just a lot better and a lot safer and a lot smoother. So yeah, check out those pieces. I will link them below. Hey, if you guys enjoy this video, I would appreciate if you hit the like button. And if you're interested in this channel, if you like what you see, hit subscribe. All right, I will see you guys on another video. Peace.